February 10th, 2023. Saint of the day is Saint Scholastica, Virgin. First reading, Genesis chapter 3, verse 1-8. Now the serpent was the most cunning of all the animals that the Lord God had made. The serpent asked the woman, "Did God really tell you not to eat from any of the trees in the garden?" The woman answered the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. It is only about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, 'You shall not eat it or even touch it, lest you die.'" But the serpent said to the woman, "You certainly will not die. No, God knows well that the moment you eat of it your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods who know what is good and what is evil." The woman saw that the tree was good for food, pleasing to the eyes, and desirable for gaining wisdom. So she took some of its fruit and ate it, and she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. When they heard the sound of the Lord God moving about in the garden at the breezy time of the day, the man and his wife hid themselves from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. Responsorial Psalm. Blessed are those whose sins are forgiven. Gospel. Mark chapter 7, verse 31-37. Jesus left the district of Tyre and went by way of Sidon to the Sea of Galilee, into the district of the Decapolis, and people brought to him a deaf man who had a speech impediment and begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him off by himself away from the crowd. He put his finger into the man's ears and, spitting, touched his tongue. Then he looked up to heaven and groaned, and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, be opened. And immediately the man's ears were opened, his speech impediment was removed, and he spoke plainly. He ordered them not to tell anyone. But the more he ordered them not to, the more they proclaimed it. They were exceedingly astonished, and they said, "He has done all things well. He makes the deaf hear and the mute speak." Reflection. Be opened. Jesus goes deeper into non-Jewish territories. From the Gentile Tyre and Sidon, he enters into the district of the Decapolis, Greek for 10 cities, the League of cities in and around Palestine, which were chiefly inhabited by Greeks. Endowed with certain privileges by the Romans, the League shielded the Greek cities from the encroachment of the Jews. Here Jesus heals a deaf man who has a speech impediment by touching his tongue and saying a word of command which Mark retains from the Aramaic language. Ephphatha, be opened. This is not some magic word, but a word of power. As a result, the man can now hear and speak plainly. The action and word have since been integrated into the rite of baptism. The priest, touching the mouth and ears of the newly baptized person, says, "Ephphatha." Pope Benedict XVI explains, "This small word, Ephphatha, be opened, sums up in itself Christ's entire mission. He was made man so that man rendered inwardly deaf and mute by sin, might be able to hear God's voice, the voice of love that speaks to his heart, and thus in his turn learn to speak the language of love, to communicate with God and with others. Angelus. The 9th of September 2012.